You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 187, Hatebreed, hosted by Dan Terry.
Please don't, go to sleep. If you go to sleep, I'm going to have to, waterboard you. I don't want to waterboard you. You don't want me to waterboard you, but I will do it.
And that's the line that opens the show. Geoff Kane.
I don't know if I need new headphones or new ears or both. Woo!
Ears. And Joseph Wren.
He should throw that.
Hang on, I'm trying to make it funny because you said it and I need to tie it in.
Okay.
Presented by discussmetal.com. And if everything you know about life you learned while watching Headbangers Ball, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe. That is Dan. That is Geoff. I have a cup of coffee, a can of beer, a bottle of another beer, and we're talking about Hatebreed.
Fucking Hatebreed. About time.
I thought we were talking about Ricky Rackman or some shit like that.
We're never going to talk about Ricky Rackman, you fuck.
Never.
Oh,
We are
okay.
going to talk about Hatebreed tonight,
Oh,
albeit probably kind of briefly, because what is there really to talk about?
Hey,
But-
it's
Do you
Hatebreed.
like the sound of Hatebreed records?
I do.
Yeah?
Do you like the fact that every time you listen to Hatebreed, you can click shuffle and effectively get the same experience?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that about him.
Are you saying, Geoff of Discography Discussion fame, that you are okay with a band being shuffled?
Yeah, because I don't particularly care about them.
Some bands can be shuffled.
Yeah, this is most definitely one that could be shuffled.
August Burns Red, anybody?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell when it starts and when it ends, if you played their albums back to back, which we do.
Hey, we can't shit on Hatebreed too much. They're consistent.
Yeah, they are. That is one
To a
thing.
fault in some cases, yes.
They definitely have consistency in spades. There's no question about that.
They're the easiest metal band to make fun of because it's Hatebreed. Every song sounds the same. The guitars are heavy. The drums are groovy. He's yelling at the microphone. Doesn't that describe most bands that you listen to, especially in this style?
Could be. I mean, we'll get into it. There's
Dan's trying to find a way out of this.
I'm really, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I have no issues with Hatebreed, from a musical or lyrical standpoint. So a lot of my normal complaints are just not there. But, I think that's okay, right? I mean, one positive thing I will say is they have the song called Destroy Everything, and my favorite part is whenever he says destroy everything. So, that's kind of what we're dealing with here with Hatebreed. It's not that they're bad. They are extremely good at what they do, and that's all they do.
Yeah, this is when you discover that Dan really is he's a hardcore dude bro who just gets pumped as fuck when he listens to Hatebreed.
I get super, super pumped whenever I listen to Hatebreed. That's not even up for debate. I mean, that's pretty much just where it is. I mean, I don't know, man.
I could see you
Straight to your face.
Yeah, breaking people in half in the pit if you were at a Hatebreed show.
Dan doesn't get in the pit. He stands in the back of the show or the front of the show. There is no middle.
I think in a Hatebreed show, he would just fucking go berserk.
Would I have a choice? I mean, probably not, right?
You probably wouldn't, but I just think if you were thrown into that situation, that you would make everybody else around you just scared shitless.
It's entirely possible. I don't know. We'll see. I might destroy everything. I might take it straight to your face. But I don't know, man. I think Hatebreed is a very interesting band as far as their history and their place in hardcore, and how they're one of the few hardcore bands that is still widely considered to be a metal band. And I think part of that is the fact that they do kind of go into old school thrash territory here and there. They do throw guitar solos in there. So I think they're a band that is definitely underrated and overrated at the same time. Good episode, guys.
Yep. Game over. Bye-bye.
Can we get away with that? Can we get away with putting out a 5-minute episode?
Well, before Geoff asks Five Finger Death Punch how you can be under and over it all at the same time, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We're on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher. So if you have an Amazon Echo or Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening, and now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
We do love our 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion. They make me feel good. They make Geoff feel good, and it's just good times all around. So if your podcast app or website or whatever it is that you're using to listen to us talk, if it allows you to leave us a review, leave us a review. We'll read it on the show. It'll be a good time. Another good thing you guys can do for us, I'm sorry it feels like I'm giving you guys work, but please share the episodes. We really love it when you guys share the episodes. So thank you so much for doing that. All of you who do that. Did I just say doo-doo on a podcast? That's fine. I'm just going to roll with it. It's fine. It's fine, baby.
So Dan, tell me about Hatebreed.
Hatebreed is an American hardcore band. Yeah, I know. On all of their bios it says metalcore band, but I don't hear that. Okay, I do hear that, but we'll get into it. They're a hardcore band from Connecticut, and they formed in 1994. So like these dudes have been around the block, like for sure. They're a hardcore band, or as I like to call them, a beatdown hardcore band. And I don't know if that's actually a genre or not, and if it is, then I'm probably describing it wrong. But this is just my interpretation of beatdown hardcore. There's no messing around with a band like Hatebreed. Okay, it's gonna be fast. It's gonna be straight to your face. It is just gonna be. It's basically heavy punk rock with a dude that screams over it. And I think that's one of the things actually that keeps me from wanting to call them a metalcore band is the vocals are so firmly rooted in hardcore. Jamie, their singer, is not a growler. And he's not really a screamer either. He's more of just a guy that yells.
He's a constipator.
I don't... Shut the fuck up, Geoff. He doesn't vocalize like a lot of metal vocalists do. And that's totally fine because that's a staple of hardcore punk. This is what hardcore used to be. Hardcore didn't used to be metalcore, and I think that's the biggest distinction that we have to make. This is one of the modern examples of how we got from punk to hardcore to metalcore, and they're not exactly a bridge band because they do have a lot of they have a lot of elements from newer styles of music, but that hardcore punk influence still reigns supreme throughout. And I like it. This is some of my favorite kinds of hardcore. And so the vocals don't bother me as much as it seems to bother everybody else because it's just par for the course. I definitely don't think he's the best hardcore vocalist I've ever heard. But because I'm such a lyric guy, I appreciate that I can understand everything he's saying just by listening to the records. And he's still screaming hard. This isn't like they're softer because he's not, growling like Carcass, which is what I say about other bands that I like less than Hatebreed. But I think that his vocals are unique for Hatebreed, and it's unique in the fact that I can actually understand what he's saying.
It's easy to make fun of Hatebreed because they're the band that always comes up when people talk about hardcore and metalcore and all these other styles that they don't really listen to or really understand. But Hatebreed, especially at the beginning, is more of a punk band that's just turned up to 11. They're playing metal, but they're playing that punk rock style of metal where it's just about the riff and the intensity and the energy of the song. I also think it's worth mentioning that Jamie Josta was a host of Headbangers Ball, which was a very popular show back in the day. And if there was ever a show that needed to come back, it would be Headbangers Ball. The point I'm trying to make is when you hear that voice every single night, and you hear that voice when you turn on the radio, it's really easy to make fun of the fact that he just sounds like he's barking at the microphone incoherently. In contrast, Hatebreed, it's very clear what he's saying. Other bands, not so clear. And that is a perk of this band. Even when I'm done listening to Hatebreed, I don't hate the fact that I was listening to Hatebreed because it was incoherent babbling.
Yeah, the earlier Hatebreed, I enjoy a fair amount, actually, despite what I'm mockingly say at times. It is closer to the punk roots part of the hardcore that I think makes me like it, because I'm a pretty big punk fan, or at least I used to be back in the day. So this is the more extreme version of what I used to listen to a lot as a teenager. So this is kind of, well, shit, this album came out my senior year. So yeah, I dig this shit. This is good stuff.
1997. Satisfaction is the death of desire.
Yeah, man, this is a great fucking album, man. I mean, back then this is what you needed. You needed a kick in the teeth. And Hatebreed does that a lot. I mean, they kick your teeth down your throat and they don't stop kicking until you don't have a head anymore.
Henry Rollins?
I think this is pretty much the point in time where mankind discovered fire. This record is fucking incredible. And it's not incredible because it's like super original, or that it sounds like other hardcore bands out there, or that it doesn't sound like other hardcore bands out there. But just with the absolute ferocity on display with these songs is, I feel like, unmatched by a lot of bands now. Like, you could take a modern band that's playing this style, and they might even have a vocalist that screams harder. They might have louder riffs. They might have whatever. But, like, they're never going to match the intensity of this album. And I just love it. I love Jamie's vocal delivery on this one, too. It's he's a little bit less screamy and a little bit more just, like, straight up. And I love it. And it's funny because I'm the kind of person that generally is like, oh, I don't really like tough guy music or whatever. And I think this is where the rub is with Hatebreed for me, is that they sound cosmetically like tough guy dude bro music. But if you actually listen to what he's saying, you will find that the shit's actually pretty fucking deep. He makes a lot of he still sounds like a young person. So you have all of the like anti-religion shit in there. You've got like all of the anti-society shit, but like there's also a lot of really good stuff about like friendship and interpersonal relationships and how we're kind of all in this together. And like, you might consider this kind of shit like hardcore tropes, but considering the fact that before bands like Hatebreed, there were not a lot of like bands that were kind of more positive. And I definitely get a positive vibe off of this album. And even though he's talking about a lot of like really hard to talk about shit, but I don't know, like he is very intelligent. These are not songs about beating people's asses or about like, I don't know, like whatever it is that the tough guy bands sing about, like how big their dicks are or something. But like Hatebreed is absolutely what I needed on this record. Like, Satisfaction is the Death of Desire is absolutely like, it's a hardcore classic. I can't say anything bad about it without getting beaten up, so I'm not going to.
No, it's
because I don't think anything bad about it.
It's the what you would call, I guess, the thinking man's hardcore.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is.
And it's not even that Hatebreed is the thinking man's hardcore, or that it's like the torchbearer for that. It's just a confirmation that, hey, maybe hardcore isn't just people being fucking tough or people trying to be violent or whatever. Because Hatebreed was so successful compared to their peers, I think it may make them seem like they're the torchbearers. They aren't necessarily that, but it is like this is the first kind of more widely acceptable or widely heard hardcore albums, and you can listen to it and be like, okay, so the music's loud and heavy, but this is actually like a real person with real feelings and is actually being upfront and transparent.
Yeah, there's substance to it.
Exactly.
What makes it so good is because there is that substance and the fact that it just oozes adrenaline the entire time. I mean, if this doesn't get you pumped up, it's probably because you're 6 feet under.
Yep.
Seriously, I mean,
you're either actually dead or you listen to bands like 6 Feet Under.
Okay, I'm glad you caught where I was going with that. I fucking love this album, and I was not expecting that back then, and the fact that I still like it today and that it still sounds relevant, I think that's the big thing. Is I'm impressed at how good it still sounds today. At least to me, it sounds good today, and I don't think that's just me being reminiscing of yesteryear. I still think legitimately if this came out in 2020 that it would still sound fucking good if this was the first time you ever heard them.
Let's be real, it would probably sound a little bit better than this. albums. But
Yeah.
that's fine.
But you know what I'm getting at.
For what it is, it's actually very well produced.
Yes, it is. I don't know. We should ask the producer over here what he thinks about the production value.
Sounds like a punk rock record from 1997 with metal guitars and thin drums. It doesn't sound bad. It sounds like a first release, and I really, really like it. I'm actually surprised it doesn't sound more like nu metal, considering some of the bands that were releasing records at that time.
I think back then, if you were in a hardcore band, it like wouldn't have been cool to do, something nu metal. Not in '97, I wouldn't think.
So if this record is oozing adrenaline and this is beat down and it gets you pumped up, why does Pantera fail to do the same thing?
Because it's groove metal.
I mean, this has a little bit of groove. I mean, it does. But maybe not this album specifically, but later Hatebreed albums. No, I mean, I think, okay, if we're going to rip the Pantera scab off, I think that, like, Pantera doesn't do it for me because I feel like, and this is all 100% lyrical, I feel like Jamie is coming from a very real and honest place. And I think Phil only sometimes does that. I think sometimes in a Pantera song, Phil's being very, very, very upfront and very honest. But I think sometimes it gets drowned out by a lot of the bravado and the look at how tough I am. And you would think that it would be different. You think it would be the opposite, but Jamie's actually super upfront and super in your face, but not necessarily in a tough guy way. And I don't feel like threatened by listening to the band, if that makes sense. And I don't know. This could all be in my head, but I don't know. Like, for me, this music hits a lot harder for me. It's more energetic, and it's not as show-offy as something like Pantera is.
He's upfront and in your face because he's trying to get his point across.
Yes. And it's not to say that Phil hasn't done that, but he doesn't do it all the time, So I whatever. It's a comparison, and it's a kind of a contradiction, but it's just how I feel. If I had to pick between Pantera and Hatebreed, it'd be Hatebreed every time. It's the hardcore kid in me coming out.
2002, Perseverance. It took 5 years, but the band persevered.
They persevered, man. They played everywhere with everyone
at all times
to get to
non-stop.
To get to this point. Like, this record is, again, man, it's a fucking barn burner. Like, it's one of those, does lightning strike twice? Yeah, it does sometimes. And this is Hatebreed with a better budget, And but I mean, I think it's still really, 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 really good. This record follows very much in the footsteps of the previous record, and get ready because I'm going to say that a lot tonight. But I love this one because I love the last one. I love both of them. I can't separate the two from each other.
The first record has that freshman sound, that first record that we paid somebody to hook up instruments and put microphones out and mix it, and that was our record, and it sounded really good in 1997. 2002, we've had some time to not only play those songs and play them to death, but we've written more songs that have the same attitude, the same intensity. So let's spend a little money on it. Let's get a little bit better production. Not the best production for this style. But in 2002, this could have sounded totally different, and it sounds like a heavy, intense, hardcore punk record. It's got some Melvins characteristics with the guitar tones, even though Melvins are more towards the punk side and the grunge side, where this is more metal. In 2002, it sounds like your typical mids sweeped out metal tone.
It is, and I think that's where people get the metalcore from, because the music is undeniably hardcore, and it's more hardcore than it is metal. But you start seeing on this record and the next that they are going to start incorporating more metal tones, some metal riffing, and then before you know it, they're even going to start throwing solos in. And so you're getting a little bit of that metal stuff, and I think that's where people get the metalcore. But it's just not metalcore as people know it today. It was metalcore in the purest sense of, we're mixing hardcore with metal stuff.
Yeah, for me, it's still like what you had said before. It's about Jamie's vocals. So I always am going to lean towards the hardcore side of things when it comes to Hatebreed, just because of his vocal stylings and delivery. Speaking of, this is one of the few times that I actually made a point to break up the discography as I listened to it, instead of going from beginning to end and just soldiering through. I like Hatebreed too much to do that to myself, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Because they do have so much, similarities. There's one thing you can say about Hatebreed, like we said, is they're consistent. But when you're trying to do a podcast of critical dissection of their music, you're doing yourself a disservice if you decide to throw that gauntlet down and just power through it, because it's gonna really jade your opinion. And that's one of the things I've learned that I'm starting to do, especially after we listened to Blind Guardian and Iced Earth. I think those two really did it to me. Yeah, we gotta break it up, because Hatebreed is a band that's fantastic in doses. Which essentially is an album at a time. If you start going more than an album at a time, at least for me with Hatebreed, it just defeats the purpose of what they're trying to present you.
Right, because at the core, it's a hardcore punk band. You don't want to listen to that one band for the rest of the day. You need one record, because that's the set list, right? 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then you want the next band to come up and play. You want the music to have the same energy and the same feel, but listening to 100 versions of the same song can be trying.
Oh, it is. And I knew that going into this episode, so I made sure that I did not do that this time, because I'm hoping that it definitely has. It changed my perspective on it, because especially with Iced Earth, I love that band. And I just completely shit over them, because I listened from start to finish and realized that's probably not the way to go. And it was very refreshing. I really have enjoyed Hatebreed. And I will say this, if your ass has a hard time getting out of bed, put their shit on as your alarm clock, and your ass is up and ready to fucking go.
Yeah, dude.
I shit you not, because I did do that this week, because my wife gets up for work before I do. So she's gone. So whenever it kicks on and starts playing, I just fucking let it go. And I just get ready in the morning, and I get to work, and I am way too amped. And they want to know how many cups of coffee I've had. And I'm like, 0! Because I don't fucking need it.
So how does this work then? At 4:30 in the morning, now is the time.
No, it's about 6:45 is when I get up.
Oh, you're a late waker then.
Well, you get up
Yeah.
way later than I do, man. I'd punch somebody in the face in order to get up at 6:45.
I don't have little kids, man.
And you
so-
might do that if you're listening to Hatebreed at 6:45 in the morning.
Exactly.
But, so I agree with you guys mostly on this as far as how to listen to Hatebreed. But for me, what Hatebreed is it's the first 4 albums and then everything else. I can absolutely listen to the first 4 albums, and you're right. It sounds like I'm just listening to one giant record. But goddamn, is this not the ultimate realization of what you want as a music fan whenever you hear something? So like, let's say you hear a song by a band on the radio or on YouTube or something, and you like the song. And the reason that you're listening to that band beyond that one song is in the hopes that their other songs will give you the same feeling or the same vibe. You don't have to worry about that with Hatebreed, because the first 4 albums are going to give you absolutely that same vibe. And it's awesome. The music critic in me has a huge fucking bone to pick with that. But at the same time, when you're talking about metal bands, I feel like there are different expectations in place for metal bands than there are for hardcore bands. A hardcore band is there to be hardcore. Hatebreed definitely checks that box to infinity. But a metal band is kind of considered to, or is at least expected to be, a little bit more on the technical side. And, the whole idea about metal is that, only really talented people can play it. Whereas with hardcore and punk, it's like the appeal is that anybody can play it. As long as you have passion about something, you can play it. It doesn't have to be the most complicated thing in the world. So I think that's where, because I think people are going to say I'm being inconsistent in saying it's okay for Hatebreed to have a very similar sound throughout their career, but then other bands I'll criticize for them. And I think it really just depends on what the expectation is based on the genre. Hardcore isn't exactly supposed to be anything more than what it is. Whereas metal, there's that built-in expectation where everything has to be more. It has to push forward. But these 4 albums, Satisfaction, Perseverance, Rise of Brutality, and Supremacy, are absolutely, like, for me, it's like a box set, and the albums aren't even that long, so it works.
2003, The Rise of Brutality.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Dan's kind of summed up the first 4 albums and tied a bow on top.
I mean, what the fuck do you want me to say, man?
No,
Like,
I'm agreeing with you. I don't think there's much more to be said. I mean, it is a box set. I think is a fantastic way of looking at the first 4 albums. I think that is actually a very good way to put it.
I will say this about The Rise of Brutality. I do think it's a dumb name. It's a little cheese, but it's fucking fine. It's Hatebreed. But like, this album did have a little bit. This is where the song started getting a little bit more catchy, a little bit more hooky, you know? I mean, Straight to Your Face. Oh my God. Fucking song. The intro to that song, you'll never get that out of your head. Like, you absolutely will never get the intro to that song out of your head. You know, I don't know. Like, Doomsayer is fucking awesome. I'll be your Doomsayer, motherfucker. Your doom awaits you. So here you're like, well, what about all that shit you said about, like, it being a thinking man's band? It does get a little bit more tough guy here. But I feel like if you know, that's one example of a song. But if you really dig into it, the lyrics are just as cutting and just as real as they were on the first record. And it's consistent there. The band still has kind of a message, you know? Maybe not a message isn't the right word to say it, because I don't think they're like pushing a message. But again, it's all these negative things talked about with positivity kind of thrown in. So The Rise of Brutality is definitely where I feel like they started taking their songwriting a little bit more seriously than they had before. But I mean, it's still not different enough for it to not, blend in with their other material.
It definitely blends in. The opening of the record has a lot more layered vocals. It has a little bit different feel in the guitars, but overall, it's Hatebreed. When you hear it, you know it's Hatebreed, and it's not really different than the previous record. But if Hatebreed is what you want to listen to today, this is an album.
It's definitely more catchy, I'd say.
You think so?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, it's still the same fucking vocals. I mean, don't get me wrong on that, but I'm just talking musically. I think it's more catchy. And as Dan said, straight to your fucking face, man. Yeah.
I mean, you can't even talk during it because you just want to bang your head. You know what I mean?
I'm like kind of snickering over the top because I'm like, I can't really say anything because I'm listening to it, in the background. I'm like, yep, this is good.
It's so fucking good. Like, and that's the whole thing. It's like, it's 3 records. And here, I think the biggest catch too is that these records are not super long. I couldn't listen to like, I don't know, like if these records were like 55, 56 minutes each, that would be a huge fucking slog.
Yeah.
But they're not bad. They're usually in the 30 to 40 minute mark at most. And that's what makes it so easy to listen to. They're fucking consistent. And that's all I really have to say about The Rise of Brutality. And spoilers, when we talk about the next record, we're going to probably say the same thing.
2006, Supremacy.
Scary name for a record. There were a lot of hardcore bands from the... Sorry about that.
I'm leaving that in.
There's a lot of hardcore bands from the mid 90s that if they put a record out called Supremacy, there was a specific type of supremacy they were talking about. And thankfully, that is not the case here with Hatebreed. And I wouldn't think so. This many years into their career, 2006, that shit's not happening in mainstream music.
No, I mean, and of course, there was the dicks out there that were trying to make it what you're talking about. I mean, so he had to come out and explain, I think, pretty regularly back then, if I remember correctly, about how this is about overcoming.
It's about overcoming yourself and your own shortcomings. I mean, he literally says, I must attain supremacy of mind, supremacy of body, supremacy of spirit, supremacy of self. Like, it's pretty fucking clear cut.
Yeah, but there's always dicks that are going to not listen to what's going on and still try to push their agenda. But like you said, if you just read the fucking lyrics, it's not that hard to figure out.
Joe, put that on the calendar. I love it.
I know. Hey,
Dan reads lyrics. The new show presented by discussmetal.com.
No, it was the fact that fucking Geoff actually paid attention to lyrics.
It's about time.
This album does have my favorite Hatebreed song of all time, Destroy Everything. As I've said before, my favorite part is the part where he says destroy everything. I'm making fun of it a little bit because it is just such a fucking meathead song, but I love it anyway. It gets me pumped up. Supremacy is a great fucking Hatebreed record. And I would say maybe it's the last great one because I think as far as my palate goes, it's a little hard from here on out to stay on the same train because once you have 4 records from a band, that's enough. That's almost enough output for you to be like, okay, cool, this is a great band.
Now, what else do you got?
Right.
And I know exactly what you're saying on that. That's kind of how I feel too, and that's why I like early Hatebreed and later Hatebreed. Is actually this time around, it didn't bother me as much. I actually liked Hatebreed, the Divinity Purpose, and Concrete Confessional more this time around than I did whenever I listened to them when they first came out.
Yeah.
Which I was pleasantly surprised, and I think part of it is just how I listened to it. It scratched that itch, whenever I was wanting to go back and listen to, especially Satisfaction is the Death of Desire. That was kind of like my go-to with them. So anytime I was, wake up in the morning or, needing to get pumped up, instead of going back and scratching an itch with that, I actually started listening to their other, their last 3 albums, and it worked for me.
When is it acceptable for a band to be a one-trick pony and never want to change and always put out the same record, the same intensity?
I don't know. Let's ask Slayer.
Slayer, Iggy Pop, maybe the Misfits, kinda. So, punk bands, it's acceptable to just do the same thing. And yes, I know Slayer is thrash. We all know thrash started with punk.
Hey man, thrash is the original metalcore, mixing punk rock with metal. I mean, it really kind of is.
Yeah.
People can fucking make fun of me all they want, but if you really look at it, thrash was the original metalcore.
I think Hatebreed has that fan base where it's acceptable for the band to just keep doing the same thing. And in 2009, they put out their definitive release, Hatebreed.
Well, let's give them a little bit of credit here. This doesn't sound exactly the same as their previous output.
Well, it's supposed to be the definitive release, right? Because it's self-titled.
Just because something I don't know, is the Zao self-titled their definitive release? No.
Yeah, but that one's actually called self-titled.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
The point I'm trying to make is usually when a band puts out a self-titled release, it's either the first record or the last record. And it's supposed to be the definitive expression of what the band is all about. With Hatebreed, that's easy. Just listen to the last 4 records.
This record is a little bit different in that the tone is more geared towards metal. It's a little bit less hardcore. I mean, it's still hardcore, but it's more metalcore than they've ever been.
This is metal music with hardcore vocals over it.
Yeah.
It's much closer to that than it's been before by, I think, quite a bit. And I don't mind it. I was more okay with it. Like I said, with how I listened to it, it worked for me. I do prefer his vocals over whenever the music itself was more hardcore and hardcore punk than being metal/metalcore kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It fit better for me, and that's why I'm in Dan's corner, and I like the first 4 albums more, and that's the reason why it just fit better. But it's not that it's bad; it's just that I don't know. I like that other style more. It meshes better for me. It gets me going. This still gets me going, but not as much as the previous.
It's just not as energetic.
Yeah,
there's not as much just straight punk going on, and like that's fine. Like they couldn't keep that up forever.
It sounds like the band is trying to change, and Jamie Josta is just doing the same thing he was doing before.
He's the best one-trick pony out there. I don't know. I think that's kind of how I look at him. I mean, obviously he's got hosting capabilities as well, but I'm just talking about musically. I think the guy's a one-trick pony, but I really don't have any complaints on that.
It's entirely possible. I mean, it's possible he can do all kinds of different types of vocals that we've never heard before, but maybe this is just his favorite.
Yeah, it's very possible, but that as a consumer, and this is what he provides us consistently, is the same style of vocal.
And being heard and understood is important to some people.
It's the most important thing you can do when your job is to deliver the message in a word form at a high volume. over extremely heavy music that has riffs that change. It's very important to be understood.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of emotiveness when it comes to Jamie with his vocal stylings. I think that's pretty apparent. He has one emotion, and so that's always consistent with him. And I think that's why, like Dan said, it's important that you can actually understand what he's saying. A lot of times when I'm listening to other types of music, the vocalist is almost like an instrument to me. So the spoken word portion of it is not as important as how emotive they are with their voice. With this type of music, you have to be understood for the music itself to work. So I guess that's the reason why for me, Hatebreed and a lot of hardcore is the exception to the rule for me, where I actually do pay attention to what they're saying, is because that's how it was designed to be, is you are supposed to understand them and focus on that, and that's what makes the music work, because they are not emotive with their delivery.
Yeah, and I also think that, like, musically, I mean, at this point, if you only are here for the hardcore, the vocals are going to be your closest semblance to that, because this is still, this is more thrash oriented, and it's got a lot more like lead guitar work. Like there's some noodle work going on in some of these songs that we really didn't get on their previous releases. So it's the band attempting to change, but not like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And but I mean, I think largely it works because I don't hate the record, but it's just not gonna be the first one I pull out whenever I go for a Hatebreed record.
I do like the end of Not My Master though. Fucking love it, man.
Oh yeah, dude.
I'm like over here and I'm like, I probably ought to be talking, but I'm just banging my head instead.
It happens. Don't even worry about it.
2013, The Divinity of Purpose.
So this one is, I'm so sorry, guys. This one's very similar to the last one. I mean, there's a little bit more like hardcore in here than there was last time. But I think overall, I don't feel like the music's hitting as hard anymore. And I don't know if it's because they're getting tired or maybe it's probably just something dumb, like how it was engineered or whatever. But like, I don't know, this one just doesn't do it for me.
Really, I'm surprised because it's more hardcore on this than there was on Hatebreed, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They go back for hardcore, but I don't know. There's just something about it that isn't quite the same.
Really? I actually like this more than I did Hatebreed.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right, but like, is it? I guess okay. So this is where I'm gonna like say something kind of unpleasable.
Ladies and gentlemen, unpleasable metal fan.
The Divinity of Purpose is a great record, but is it as good of a record as Supremacy or Perseverance or Satisfaction?
Absolutely not. It is a consistent delivery of the Hatebreed sound, but there's just something about it that's not as good as those records.
I mean, it's not bad. It's not even like, I mean, it is. The quality drop-off is not in the songwriting, and it isn't even in the vocal delivery. It's just something about, maybe it's overexposure or what, but like what? Why would I listen to The Divinity of Purpose instead of the first four albums?
I'd be kind of curious, like, if you took the average BPM on this album and matched it to the first four, it's just not considerably slower. And I think that's actually the reason why you don't like it as much.
Probably. It's probably something really dumb like that.
No, I'm serious. I think this is just not enough in your fucking face.
It's not straight to my face.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. But I think that's the reason why you don't like this one as much. It's still hardcore, but it's not as driven.
Yeah, and when I say I don't like it as much, like, I'm not like turn this shit off or they fucked up here or anything. Again, they're consistent. There's not a Hatebreed album that I hate. Feels weird saying that. But like, it's just that, yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to pick other albums before I pick this one. That's all. Well, nothing more, nothing less.
Out of everything that we've done so far, though, I would pick it fifth, and I would have picked Hatebreed sixth or last. Would you feel the same way?
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Okay. That's probably the best way for me to put that, too. It's not that I dislike it. It's just that I like the first four more, just like you do. But I definitely like it more than I liked Hatebreed.
Definitely.
2016, The Concrete Confessional.
This is a grower. I listened to this one more than I listened to any of the other records for this episode because it's kind of a mixture of their old sound with the sound that they did on the self-titled. And again, I guess, maybe Jeff's right. The BPM is higher, but there is also a little bit more like variation in these songs as well. So like, you have a song like AD, which is like fast, right? But as you go, some of the songs kind of slow down. They're more the pace of like the last two records. But then you've got more lead guitar work, you've got more solos, more thrash segments.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it's like an accumulation of pretty much like their whole discography into one record, and I think that's why it was easy to listen to.
Yeah, I felt like this was like hardcore thrash. That'd probably be the best way for me to put it.
Yeah.
And I actually liked it, and I was excited when it came out, and yeah, I mean, what else can you say? I mean, it's like what Dan said, it's kind of an amalgamation of everything that they've done, and that's actually a pretty good thing. I would say outside of the first four, this is my favorite album, and I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, this one's really good. It's definitely a step in the right direction.
Sorry, Dan. I like the fact that I feel like there's actually like legitimate growth on this album. Maybe that's just me, like being able to take all of those things and mix it together and make it work.
I mean, anything's possible, I guess. I
mean, it's still Jamie Josta's voice, so there's no growth on that. But I'm just talking musically. I really like how everything came together on this album.
I mean, his voice sounds different than it used to. I think that probably has more to do with age, or maybe like just better voice management.
Yeah, well, 20 years of yelling your fucking guts out.
He sounds amazingly consistent for 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good record. What do you want me to say? It's another Hatebreed record, and it incorporates pretty much everything everything from the grab bag up to this point, and I'm fine with it. I mean, it's fine. Their next record's going to come out eventually, and that's going to be fine too.
Yeah, thanks fucking COVID.
Yeah, so I mean, like, this is get pumped music. This is hype music, and I enjoy it. But I can't put on my music critic hat and pick it all apart, because objectively it's terrible that there's not like that it takes 20 years to get a guitar solo. You know what I mean? Like I could have totally approached this episode from that angle, but it would have been disingenuous, because I like this band and I like their music and what they do. So I'm gonna just say that it's fine.
Yeah, speaking of eventually having a release, and thanks to COVID for fucking it up, Weight of the False Self is postponed indefinitely, which is it was already supposed to be released. Essentially, Hatebreed is one of those bands that tours their ass off. They have a huge fan interaction, so naturally they sell a ton of physical media. Well, it doesn't make good business sense for them to release this if a lot of their revenue comes from physical media. So from what I understand, everything's pretty much done on the album. All they got to do is just make it where they can actually release it physically to the public, because they're kind of an old school band with that whole grassroots hardcore feel. They still legitimately have that going for them. So we have to wait. And as soon as it comes out, I'm very curious to see what we get.
I don't think this record is a step in any direction. I think it sounds like Hatebreed doing the same thing that they've always done. It just sounds a little bit different than the Divinity of Purpose. Yeah, it's got more of a metal gallop vibe to it, but really it just sounds like Hatebreed doing the same thing again. And if it came out a different year, it would still be the same thing. It's just the latest thing that's been done by Hatebreed. I don't know why you'd postpone the newest record. I understand about the physical media, but guys, it's 2020. Just put the record out. People will buy it. They're still going to come to your shows. They're still going to buy the merch at the shows.
Well, there's no shows.
Right.
There will be shows.
Eventually, yes.
But why not just put the record out? See, now you're in a bad situation where you're applying the hype machine to a record that is functionally done, and all you have to do is release it. But instead, you're going to sell me on this idea that this is the greatest sequel of all time, and there's no way that it's not going to come out in the theater, so now we have to sit on it for a few years, because I haven't seen this jet fight other jets in over 40 years.
Yeah,
I think you're upset about something else, and you're projecting that, and you're projecting that onto Hatebreed.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a catch-22 for them. They're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Just put the fucking record out, guys.
Well,
it's
not
fucking
everybody's
done.
hum, okay?
Well, the problem is that if they put this out, the fear is if they put this out and then they're not allowed to tour for 2 years or however long this COVID shit stays around. I mean, it's lost its luster. I mean, they're going to have new content for that tour because it's going to be forgot. You can't you can't tour 2 years after release of an album or something like that. That's all I'm trying to say. So I understand where they're coming from. They're kind of stuck in a difficult spot, and I think personally they're making the right decision on holding it on, even if they just wait and release it early next year or something like that, and then tour at the end of next year. Or I don't know, but if they had released it earlier this year and then they had to wait a solid 18, 24 months before they could tour with it, yeah, that's kind of a problem. Especially when you have a band that they make most of their bones on physical media and merch sales. That's pretty typical with most bands of this nature. So I get what they're doing.
Final thoughts on Hatebreed, Geoff.
I'm happy that all these years later that I still like them. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but a lot of times whenever you have bands that are this aggressive, they kind of get stale after a while, especially whenever their formula doesn't change that much. But I'm happy to say that I still love them, and I think it's because they're best in small doses, and that's how I'm going to continue to do it moving forward.
Dan, what about you?
Hype!
I think Hatebreed is the best example of a band that does the hardcore punk thing and does it through the entirety of their career and always delivers the exact same response, the exact same feeling, the exact same energy. When you go see a Hatebreed show, you're going to get exactly what it is you're expecting. And in the example of Hatebreed, that is a good thing. It would be a lot worse if Hatebreed decided tomorrow to release a melodic hard rock record. Or it might sound great, who knows. But I think if you're listening to Hatebreed, you're expecting it to sound like this, and that is exactly what you're going to get. So if you're a fan of hardcore, if you're a fan of metal, listen to Hatebreed. You're already listening to Hatebreed, and stop denying that Hatebreed is a good band, because they're one of the best bands in this style. Dan, what's your album of the week?
Oh, man, putting me on the spot like that? I mean, we do this every week, so I'm not really on the spot. But, yeah, I'm just having trouble deciding because I've listened to a lot of Gold Cobra this week by Limp Bizkit. But I've also listened to a whole bunch of Death Therapy, Storm Before the Calm. So I guess I'll give the edge out to the Bizkit.
Geoff, what about you?
I tell you what, I think I'm turning into Dan 2.0, and
you're not nearly angry enough.
Well, with my music choices, that is. And Dan's becoming somebody else, so I'm going with The Funeral of God by Zayo.
Good choice.
Fuck yeah, man. The Rising End. I've been playing the shit out of that song nonstop, man.
I mean, it's no Romance of the Southern Spirit, but I'll give it to you. For me, it's Clawfinger. Deaf, Dumb, Blind. Have you ever heard Faith No More and then looked at your phone and realized it wasn't Faith No More you were listening to? That's what happened to me this week.
All right, I'm going to have to check them out.
Warfare. We'll talk after the show.
So, Geoff, who am I becoming exactly?
I think you're on the wrong podcast.
What are you talking about?
I think you ought to be with, like, Lauren and Matt. And
Oh, because I like Limp Bizkit?
Oh, I didn't say
A lot
that.
of people like Limp Bizkit. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
You're just jealous because the motherfucker made it.
Yes, I am.
Take us out, DFT.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to reach out to us in any way to give us band suggestions or interview suggestions or interview connections, those are always nice too. Make sure to send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Facebook at facebook.com/discography discussion. Reach out to us on Twitter at discussmetal. You can join our Discord server. There'll be a link in the show notes that'll take you there. If you want to watch me play video games on stream on Twitch specifically, I will be streaming on Twitch on Mondays and Thursdays at 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to see me die and quake, come over and do that. If you want to get some sweet, sweet Discography Discussion merch, head on over to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of sweet merch. The merch is changing here soon, so if you want the classic design, now is the time to move on that.
And on that note, this has been episode 187 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion. And please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Give me your money.
Hype!
So proud. The only
Ladies and gentlemen, unpleasable metal fan.
The divinity of. The definitive. What?
Jesus, come on.
Definitely.
I'm broken.
Definitely.
The definitive. Fuck me. All right.
It's not just me this time.
This is going on at the end of the show, right? Like after the credits.
We'll figure it out.